because that's what
Right.
God said, right? For
Well,
surely, as soon as you eat from that, you will die.
don't attack me because of my bad language. Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's just I said it wrong, but
Okay.
you know what I'm saying. But they had the tree of life, and then they had the tree of knowledge,
Right.
and they were told to stay away from the tree of knowledge, but they chose
Yeah.
to anyhow, and that is where, because they became self-aware and because they freaking ate of the tree of life, that's where freaking they gained the original sin because they went against God. At least that's the way I was talking about it.
So the original sin. You know what the first sin is? Is the original sin of all creation is the sin of the devil.
Which
The sin of pride, meaning that he thought that he was too powerful, too smart. He think he could rival God,
Mm-hmm.
so he rebelled. So that's the sin of pride, and the original sin of humans from the devil's temptation is similar to that. God told them not to eat, or as soon as you eat it, you will die. So they didn't believe it. They didn't listen to it. And in fact, they call God a liar, basically. Uh, and so that's a variation of the sin of pride.
yeah, but when they did that, uh, he set it up to where since they have never had pregnancy, never would, and when they broke the law, God looked and said, for every child that you have, you would feel unorganized pain, like through labor, and because before they broke the law, they would never have known what pain was.
Right? Pain and death is the consequence of the original sin. Yeah.
But see
Yeah,
that opens
definitely.
up another avenue though, and I think me and Mark had a conversation about this at one time. I don't know. I'm not for sure, Mark, but tell me if I'm wrong here. But
Do you think what I'm thinking? Possibly. I was going to say
does that mean
raises the question of if you didn't eat from the tree of knowledge, then would the human race always just be two people, Adam
yes,
and Eve?
exactly?
No,
And
no. Remember,
Do they mention?
before they
Yeah.
fell, God commanded them to be fruitful and multiply. Right? So the ability to have children.
So
Yeah.
in that case, God, if you're going to use that argument, then God has created a virus in effect, because
No,
if you
it-
can never die, and
it's
you
a
just
workforce.
multiply, sooner or later there won't be enough room for you've got a plague of
Why not?
humans.
Why not?
They
They had unlimited resource.
it was a workforce. You got to remember that freaking the Anunnaki needed a workforce so that they could do their jobs for
I know
them.
you say that God is an alien. Yeah, okay, carry on.
You see, they needed the
Okay.
workforce, so they
Yeah, a workforce that will never die.
yeah.
That just keeps on multiplying.
Well, I don't
And continue to multiply.
I
And
don't
then eventually they will scatter out and explore the universe.
And then
I don't know. I don't know if limited
gentlemen,
resource was
sorry
a
to be
problem
late.
before the fall, right? Right?
now Otto's
So-
here. Welcome, Otto. Now
Hello.
the thing that
Hello,
I'm
Otto.
noticing, the thing that I'm noticing is it's
Hello.
knowledge. Okay, that seems like in the old religion or in the old ways, because it's not the old religion. This Christianity and Judaism is actually New Age when it comes to a lot of this. But
I got into a good discussion here.
but what I'm getting from these beliefs is that knowledge was bad. If you want to educate yourself and be knowledgeable and think outside of the box, then you were you were committing a sin, and that was looked down on. You had to have
No.
faith. You had to have faith in God and do what you were told.
I think if you had faith in God and do what you were told, you would have accomplished much more. I don't think restricting knowledge was the command.
That was the argument.
Well, that's where you're wrong. Because what better
That's
way
what.
for? Sorry.
And that's what the devil tried to convince Adam and Eve, that God's limiting your ability to learn, your knowledge. So what are you saying, Robert?
Well, what I'm referring to, you by doing that, like with the church is not going to let you get intelligence because they would like to keep to where people believe in what the church says, and what the church says and does. If you getting more smarter and all that, you have more and more ideals of your own about situations. Okay, and
That's
nobody's
what
going to
the-
want you.
That's what the enemies of the church will have you believe. But, a lot of scientists that helped progress science were Catholic theologians. Some of them were even priests and members of the clergy, right?
Oh, I think the sciences have long. I think some of the top astronomers are Jesuits, but
Yeah.
today physicists and stuff. The church has always led the way in European education. I mean, for a while it was the only place to be educated. To this day, the Oxbridge colleges, most of their traditions are actually ecclesiastical in origin. They were secularized over time, but they have canons and dons and this and that. A lot of their titles, even the black robes and so forth. But it's funny. I just kind of walked into the middle of this, but we were talking about the Garden of Eden last night, and it was brought up that it was because of man's disobedience that he did gain this knowledge of, there are things we don't want to know. It's like, what's it like to fall down that well? I don't want to know. There's some knowledge you don't want. What's it like to get hit by a car? But the argument was, I think, that this is what led to all of our achievements. We leave the garden and we
It's true. It's true.
by our brow. And so in one sense, it's like about disobedience is kind of like when a child learns through consequences. So I don't think that the world outside the garden is ignoble. I think there's so much love, so much power, so many positive things going on. And yes, a lot of negative things too. But the fact that, humans can strive together and can create something that C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien would go on about, that we are creatures, and so we are sub-creators. When we create things, when we, whether it's art or literature or whatever work we do, in a sense, we're partaking in that aspect of our Creator.
Does this mean that God is a contradictory God?
I think God is going to have to be contradictory to us.
He's supposed to be all things, so he would have to be
Yeah.
both. He would have
Point
to
of
be.
view.
Explain how you see the contradiction.
Yeah, that's a good question. How do you
In the
see it?
view that he wants humans to be subservient to him and not to gain knowledge, but allow humans to gain knowledge anyway.
We're trying to surpass his ideals.
In other words, the whole thing that, and I'm just seeing God set up the whole Garden of Eden narrative ahead of time. That this was simply a way to, it's again, it has to do with time, and we're talking, of God, something which by definition is beyond our ability to define him, for the purposes of this discussion. So I think that I'm reminded of something again, going back to C.S. Lewis, who said something to the effect of like, God doesn't foreordain things, but God is outside of time and so can see everything that you will decide, but he can't make those decisions for you. So I guess you could say that there's some, to us, this would seem contradictory, but we're inside of time. And I despair of talking about much about God at all. You know, I always fall back on the apophatic theology of St. Dionysius the Areopagite, who talks about what God isn't is the closest we can come to, because any kind of a statement about an infinite being, I'm always very careful about, because it lends itself to confusion very easily, and trying to reduce God's motivations to our level, it's like it's not nearly like, but the closest thing might be a chipmunk living in the backyard here of the house I'm staying at right now, understanding the New York Stock Exchange, or how to code or something like that. It's just very difficult to get anything but the dimmest idea of people trading, squirrels trading nuts or something,
But in this case, you aren't. God stated that you should not eat the apple, but being omnipresent, omnipotent, he knew that you were going to eat the apple. So what's the point of stating do not eat the apple if you already knew that you were going to eat the apple?
Well, I was just listening to a story about a guy that was told, you have to go to this place, and there you will be slain. And because of this, though, your nation will be protected for 30 years. The enemy won't be able to come here. So sometimes, even when you know something that you don't want to happen is going to happen, you still have to go through with it. Maybe God, in his omniscience, realized that there would be disobedience, but he still had to try. There's a Scandinavian saying, this comes out of Norse paganism, where they believed that everything was foreordained. The fates sealed your fate. You had no free will. But there was a saying that, my fate was fixed long before I was born. There are much better ways to face the end than being a coward. In other words, even no matter how bad it's going to be, and this touches on the Greeks as well. And for that matter, I would argue anyone facing things, the martyrs going into the arena, anyone who just walks in there saying, yeah, I know I'm going to die, I'm just going to face it. So maybe that was the case with the Garden of Eden and the serpent. He had to try.
When I did the research on this stuff, and I talked to my priest and stuff about it, they pointed it out to me that it's written in the Bible, and what it is Jesus. Jesus had to die on the cross to be allowed to sit by his Father's side. So in order for that to happen, freaking humans had to actually partake of the fruit of knowledge, okay, so that they could freaking be sent out into the world and the sin could be built up. And when Jesus was crucified on that cross, he had to take in the sins of all humans, past, present, and future, and that allowed him to actually be able to sit by his Father's side, the Father, the Son.
But he was already by the Father's side before the fall.
He was without sin. See, he was perfect in every way, but he did not know what sin was.
Well, he still was without sin after he was born.
No, when he died on the cross, he was filled with every sin of every human on the face of this planet.
I don't.
Well, you think as God, he wouldn't have known that?
He's not. He wasn't. He was the Son of God. Okay, he was.
Wait. You mean that was at one point the second person in the Trinity wasn't God?
He had to.
Yeah,
He had to sacrifice himself on the cross in order to freaking become to sit by his Father's side.
I mean, when you talk about an omnipotent God saying having to do something, sounds like a contradiction, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was always told, and it actually makes sense. What you're saying is ridiculous. Like he just one day decided, you know what, I'm just gonna go let them hang me on a cross. That's
Well,
ridiculous.
I think
No, it's not one day. It's
Well,
if
you know
God-
what I'm saying. He's like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna go ahead and let them just hang me up on this cross and not.
you know, we're straying towards Aristotle territory here because we're getting towards the idea of the mover, the unmoved mover. And I think maybe what we're groping towards is once God initiates, and again, we are such limited beings in time, so we're talking about something, an idea that we just can't understand about being outside of time. So anyway, if God initiates a course of action, then every part of that course of action then is necessary.
Yeah, like
We think of it as a
Yep,
sequence. Now he has to do this. Now he has to do that. For God, it would all have been simultaneous, I think. And not even that, but that's the best we can come up with. So, you know, yeah, once God initiates a course of action, all these things, I mean, and you got to be careful because, yeah, you can talk about how the tree of the tree in the garden is cognate with the cross at Golgotha, you know, supposedly the grave of Adam or something. I don't know about whether that's actual scriptural, but
No, I don't think
so
it
that the
is.
one tree was necessary to the other tree, but that doesn't mean that it was done in order to cause the other thing to happen. It's just the two are related in the, 4-dimensional or 10-dimensional, whatever structure of the cosmos there is.
Mhm.
So if somebody, if somebody dies, passes on, and because of that, someone who's been a caretaker for them suddenly is able to go do something else. It's not that, well, they had to pass on so that I could go do this. It's because this happened and now this is going to happen kind of deal. They're related, but it's not a deliberate causality. I don't know. I might be blithering a bit here. I've had a long day at work, but
no.
so
You're making sense.
but that's kind of how I
Yeah.
see it. It's so tough to talk. We are embedded in the arrow of time and struggling to look outside of it, which is to me, I think, good evidence that we do have a nature that partakes of something higher than mere earthiness.
No, actually, since you're here, we haven't had a chance to let you talk about what the topic was about. We were talking about do you remember back in the 60s whenever they had the apparitions and the three girls witnessed them?
60s?
You mean
Was it
the
like the
miracle at
60s?
Fatima?
Yeah,
Fatima
yeah,
miracle?
Fatima. But
Fatima
was
is the 20, the 17s.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, you're
yeah.
right. You're right. That was back in the
1915 or
yeah,
something.
right during
1917.
the Spanish.
1917. Okay.
Yeah. What's your
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not an expert on it. It's certainly something that if it happened today, I'm not sure what they would make of it, but it certainly seems like something happened there. And for a lot of people, it was a manifestation of Our Lady. I've heard people call it a UFO encounter, but it was definitely a place where we saw that there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt on in your philosophy. So yeah, I'm not an expert on it though, but a lot of people saw something very interesting that day, and the children seemed to be very sincere. So, and I'll basically, I don't want to, I can start commenting on the supernatural aspects of it, but to me, it happened within the purview of the church, and I will rest satisfied with whatever the church deems, how the church deems to interpret it, because it, in a very real sense, it's happening. It happens completely within the continuum of Roman Catholicism. Although it can be looked at outside of that, you can look at it as simply a just the perceptions of the people outside of their culture and what was happening in their religion. You could look at it from a technological standpoint if you want, although there wasn't a lot of high technology in 1917 to be doing things with. But But yeah, it was certainly one of those things that happens is very powerful, very important. We don't understand it, so we stop talking about it almost immediately.
So you don't have a say on it? Is that what you're saying? Like
I have no idea what it was. I have no theory. There are so many things that happen and have happened in this world. Miracles, whatever you want to call them, time slips. They're not usually as well documented as that, but people have been experiencing these sorts of things for thousands upon thousands of years, ever since we have human records.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them today, you know, and this is a continuum, and I'm not denigrating miracles of God, but there are also like a lot of other things that I think have nothing to do with miracles of God, but like a lot of the UFO contactee stuff, some of the experiences people have. A lot of people dabbling in the occult have had some very strange experiences. You don't usually hear much about that because it's considered to be, well, it's just some crazy nut job, but it's human perception all the same. And there's a continuum of this through all these phenomena.
I was just going to say, if you look at it on the other end of the scale, it could be just hysteria.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Mass hysteria?
Well, hysteria, yeah. Mass hysteria happens to multiple people.
Let me, he goes.
I mean, mass hallucination.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but have you heard about
jobs, if you want?
I wonder how that works. How do you get a lot of if a lot of people are hallucinating the same thing? Doesn't that, by definition, make it real? I mean, if we all see a pink elephant, that couldn't possibly exist. Well, we all see it. I mean, isn't consensus the basis of reality? If we all see something, then it's real, right? If we don't see it, it's not real.
I don't know about that.
Well, I got something for you. Okay, during it was, I think it was World War II. They did a big thing of this horse. It did the unknown, and where this horse was given aid to all the military. Didn't make a difference what side you were on. They were military guys getting drug help, got out of areas that was getting bombardment, shooting real bad. This horse was doing stuff like no other animal, and they gave it was on the news about it, that they gave high praises for this brand of horse, and it was part of it was part of war. It was in the war. It was. This horse did so much that rescued people, medicines. You put a bag on the horse. The horse knew where to go. Actually, took the stuff to the hospital.
Nice.
And they did a big thing about that on the news from I forget where, but what country, but they did it. And I was really surprised about it, because that says that an animal cannot think in ways of, what you call it, like I said, a person can actually think in ways to impress or makes their mind more. And for an animal to able to do that, to help take people from one spot to the other, out of the way, and help them get into, because with a high general got hurt and he stuck his foot around through the saddle thing or some kind of rope or something, but it drugged him out. It did. And the animal did that quite a bit, and it was high praises, and they said that and I just find that really pretty good. And for an animal to do that, you were talking like a thing of God. For an animal to actually to have that done like that without being killed by all what was going on around any animal, I do not know. But for a horse to survive like that, there's something there. I mean,
if you want to talk about miracles, I remember something very well documented. This was at Lourdes, and this guy had a very badly damaged leg, and part of the bone in his leg had to be removed. But he resisted any kind of an amputation, and he survived the injury, and lived basically unable to walk. There was like a section of bone was basically missing from his leg. Well, short version of the story, he went to Lourdes and was cured. He was walking around. Doctors couldn't believe it at the time, and they asked him, please, when you die, can we autopsy your body, because we really want to look at this, because they had examined him, they had removed the bone, there was some kind of an injury, they knew there was no bone there. So he did eventually pass on, and they autopsied him, and they found that his leg had not only had the bone healed, had regrown, but it was actually slightly like a millimeter longer than it had been, just very slightly even more powerful. Again, what happened there? I have no idea. It happened, however, within the purview of the church, and if it's a supernatural occurrence, well, it happened to a Roman Catholic who went to a Catholic shrine and prayed to a Catholic saint, and there we go. So I'll bow to the church as far as their supernatural interpretation, but as far as a natural interpretation, I have no idea what happened there. And again, things like this.
It's been just a genetic mutation.
There you go. Maybe like a rare cosmic ray. Occam's razor suggests that maybe God just did it. That's the simplest explanation, the easiest and most. I mean, from a scientific viewpoint, strange mutations and cosmic rays and possible aliens intervening. No, that was all I had.
Well, in Canada, this woman had what you call it, where you have to get where you take fluids from the spine.
Oh yeah, okay. Spinal tap. Yeah.
Okay, and woman needed that. Okay. Plus, here's the thing. This is in the medical industry in Canada. That this woman had AIDS, and she had that done. But however the process is, okay, that it got eliminated AIDS, and by having that spinal tap done to her, as they said, it was some kind of genetic in the fluids or something. But and they're keeping an eye on her because they wanted to see if the AIDS comes back or whatever the process from it, if it's a long term or what. But they found that they did this recently, a year or two ago. And that's
they're going to want to study that. Yeah, they're going to want to study that. They're always getting weird side effects from things. I read a thing. This was a few years ago. They discovered that this one drug they were giving people, and like I said, like when they were doing a spinal tap, it was just for a spinal tap. They didn't have any other idea. Well, these guys were getting a drug. It was some kind of a liver treatment. It was in combination with a couple of drugs. But doctors started noticing that when their patients would come in, their hair was darker, but they thought they were just dyeing their hair until patients started saying, "Doc, my hair gets darker." And like apparently one of the side effects of this drug is that it returns, if you have gray hair, it returns your hair to its original color. So it's a side effect. I mean, it's some kind of a chemo drug. I don't think it's a pleasant. You wouldn't take it just to make your hair turn. But last I heard, they were studying it to try to find some way of isolating how it did that. So in the next 5 or 10 years, we might have Mark, you may never lose those chestnut curls. You might keep that hair color forever. You see what happens with age, dude. You see what I look like now.
Yeah, tell me about that.
As I am now, so shall you be. Abandon hope who follow me. But they're always discovering weird little side effects from these things. It's very interesting.
So you guys went from Fatima to freaking side effects to chemo treatment.
Well, no, not chemo. Where the woman had a spinal tap.
So you went off topic again, right? I step away, man. It's like all of a sudden Robert just goes into a.
Why, you stepped away? Come on.
I should have known better.
The big thing about the Fatima incident that most people are interested in are the so-called prophecies, right?
Yeah.
There were prophecies supposed, and I've heard all kinds of things in the rumor mill. I don't know what the Vatican stance. I never really followed it all that closely, but I seem to remember that there was supposedly a sealed letter kept at the Vatican that had some kind of a prophecy that was going to be read at a certain time. But I never
They're
knew what
called the Fatima secrets.
And
There,
what are
there were
the secrets?
three. There were three of them. Two of them were revealed, and the third secret was apparently in that letter that you were talking about, given to the Pope. And, Sister Lucia was the one. I think she wrote about it. So I think it is known by now what that is. But something about one of them was something about a Pope that got murdered, right?
An assassination or an assassination attempt on the Pope.
Yeah, and they kind of linked that to the assassination attempt of Pope John Paul II.
Right.
But I think that might have been the second or something, and then the third one, I don't know what it is, but I think it's been disclosed.
Isn't it something about praying the rosary to bring Russia back into the church or something? Although I don't think they would have meant Orthodox Church. I think they meant, I don't know. Was Russia ever?
Russia, yeah, bringing back from communism, basically.
Yeah.
Church, yeah.
Yeah, but they've always had the Catholic sort of, the Orthodox Catholic Church in Russia, even throughout.
Well, they before the schism, it was really technically all the same church.
Yeah.
So, but I know they've made some steps towards reconciliation, but I don't think there's ever going to be, one church again. The Orthodox Church is going to stay there. They're not going to come back.
You could make the same argument in China. China still has a Catholic Church, but it's beholden to the state.
Well, they chased a lot of churches out a long time ago, didn't they?
Huh?
They're very anti-religious. It's in their constitution. It's destroy religion.
Well, you guys, when Russia,
China.
China.
No, China has, much like Russia, has have a live religion that the religious sects cannot overstep.
Okay, yeah, atheist.
Political views.
Yeah.
So it has to be in lockstep with the Communist Party, PCP.
Closely controlled by the party, and and their government is officially atheist, which is a kind of a religion for them, I think, in some ways. And they discourage any kind of religious sentiment by anyone. The state has to do everything.
There's a good film made in the 70s, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's a Kirk Douglas film where Kirk Douglas was I think an Italian priest working under Nazi controlled or even Nazi or Italian fascist controlled Italy, so fascist controlled Italy. And it demonstrated the sort of interplay between the church and the political regime at the time.
Or the Italian state. Well, yeah, Mussolini's concordant with the Pope was like a huge step, because when the nascent Italian Republic seized the Papal States, I think the Pope refused to talk to the Italians for like a long time. But again, I've always said church, state, society, for most of history, it's always been one thing. And, the Roman Empire, these beasts were very sophisticated about things like social engineering. And, we've talked about before about when the church got involved in the apparatus of the Roman state, you saw a lot of things change with state support. Yes, it protects and gives the church more power, but then you have corruption tends to rise with power corrupts. And those were a lot of the problems you have with any successful group. And again, this goes back to what we've talked about before. You've got two churches. You've got, the spiritual institution that exists eternally, but then you've got sinful human beings. One of the things I've always liked about, if you read entries in the Catholic Encyclopedia, it's incredibly honest about some of these popes. The Borgia popes, Alexander the Sixth is like, yeah, he's poisoning people, this or that. They don't try to gloss anything over, because sometimes people do bad things. People can be bad people. But so yeah, and you can argue that the church losing a lot of its political authority gave it a chance to turn back to its more spiritual mission. I think that was the case with Tibetan Buddhism. Yeah, I was going to bring up Buddhism, right? The Dalai Lama, everybody's going on about, beautiful Dalai Lama, peace and love. He's such a nice guy, and he's a nice guy. He's very wise. He's got all this stuff. But the government of Tibet for the longest time was a Buddhist theocracy. And a traveler there mentions that, all the descriptions of tortures in the Buddhist hells, those are all based on what they actually did to people. The criminal code was like incredibly horrible for mutilations and things. And you'd have lamas. The lamas would also be the local rulers sometimes. So you'd have lamas with bodyguards with rifles and fixed bayonets and things. And, that was one of my things. If you took the Buddha in a time machine and showed him one of these guys with a funny hat and a bodyguard ruling, that's a Buddhist monk. I don't think he would be impressed. But this was the nature of power. These people ruled the country. So when the Chinese invaded Tibet and occupied it, and the Tibetan government in exile came down, well, the Tibetan government in exile was also the hierarchy of the Tibetan Buddhist sect that the Dalai Lama is in charge of, and all these other, the whole Tibetan Buddhist infrastructure. So, well, they don't have people to rule anymore, taxes to collect or wars to fight. So they're back to going on about peace and love and stuff. So really, I sometimes think exile was the best thing that could have happened to the Dalai Lama, because it was only his predecessor that stopped doing mutilations, like chopping people up. He had a German friend, this guy came from Germany, talked to him a lot about Buddhism and convinced him to stop those punishments. They did still use I think it's pronounced the kang, which is like a big wooden collar. You might have seen pictures of people. It's like a big wooden collar, like a couple of feet square, and it goes around your neck. And you got to wear this thing for so many years, because they didn't have prisons. They couldn't afford that kind of thing. A lot of these, medieval kind of times. So they would just put the jail around you. And there was a Buddhist point about this, apparently. If you're wearing one of those, you think, oh, that's not so bad. You cannot feed yourself. You can't wipe your own nose. You cannot drink. So you are completely dependent upon your friends and family to feed you, to give you drinks, to wash your face and head for however many years you have to wear the thing. And it's supposed to be a lesson in how we depend upon others and upon their kindness and things like that. It's kind of a heavy lesson, but anyway, yeah. I don't think power is good for spiritual organizations. Not temporal power, not power over executing people and stuff like that.
On the cliff, I forget where. I think it was in India or somewhere. There's a place that was built. The monks, different. It was different brands of monks. But they built their place in the mountain, not in the mountain, but on a cliff thing, but where you can barely see it. But they dug into it, and there was 3 to 4 different brands of monks there, building and construction of it. And when the time comes, they had to up and leave. And today, they were making it on the thing that them places are off limits. They'll walk by, but if they catch anyone going into it, they'll be arrested for vandalizing. Yeah. But there was 3 to 4 different brands of monks all living in that one spot.
Well, yeah, some of those places they people go in and have destroyed some of those places. They have these amazingly valuable paintings because it shows us images and sometimes inscriptions from thousands of years ago sometimes. So people go in there and they pick things off for bloody souvenirs or do graffiti or they steal stuff. And there's so many sites in these countries. Archaeologists don't have the time or the funding to like get to them all. I think the best they can do sometimes is try to keep people away from them, you know,
Yeah.
because it's really a pity. So much gets lost that way. I hate
The
that.
best thing they could do is give it to the British Museum.
Like the Elgin marbles. Yeah. Greece was so happy about that.
Yeah.
It's part of my secret.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Hold a second. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Virgin Mary helped save them.
Huh. Nice to have friends in high places, you know.
Hey guys, I'm not for sure, but there was one place that he was. I forget. Well, she said because he came back and said that no one believed him about him seeing her, and she looked and said, "What you would have to do to take flowers, put it in your jacket."
Oh, right. Our Lady of Guadalupe. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't. I'm not. Yeah, okay, and that was another one right there. You know, similar to the one about the three girls and that, because nobody believed him until he did that.
Well, see, the thing of it is, and a lot of people don't understand, this is something that's reoccurred over time. There's 3 of them that I know of. There was one that happened in France, one that happened in Portugal, and then another one that happened in Mexico.
No, I was looking at an account of these guys who had been shipwrecked. It was actually a story of the HMS Wager, and at one point they had gotten to Portuguese territory, and when they got back to the main capital, they went to give thanks at the chapel of Our Lady of the Good Death. I thought that was really cool, Our Lady of the Good Death, because you want to have a good death.
Mm-hmm. I thought Joseph was the patron saint of a happy death.
Really, Joseph?
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't know that.
That's something that was discussed on Otto's Discord channel. He referred me to where they were talking about where you have happy birthdays. And nobody ever talks about happy death days. You know what I mean?
I don't know. In Mexico, in Latin America, there's a.
Oh, yeah.
There's a Saint Death, isn't it?
Yeah, Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead.
Santa Mota.
And where they
Santa
picked up
Mota,
the
yeah.
casket, the skull. They were taking the skulls out and showing it, and the spirit of the family was in the skulls.
You know, my friend Satori does a lot of work with Mexican folklore, and the Day of the Dead is like very important to him. And it was interesting. One of the things they talk about with it was that it is like many of these folk traditions, it's an amalgamation of much older beliefs. And, you know, just as whenever people's culture changes, their spiritual path changes, this or that, they still retain these things. And actually, we were talking about this in Buddhism as well. With some, in Buddhism, they have special remembrance days, death days. And we were talking about that this predates, because it's like, wait, that makes no sense from a Buddhist standpoint, because you've been all these other beings and this and that. Why would you sell it? Well, this ancestor respect and worship predates the introduction of Buddhism. And so in Mexico, a lot of these ideas predated the introduction of Catholicism. So they had the idea that when you died, you had this journey, and you didn't just go to the afterworld immediately. It took like so many days, and on special days you would have a festival, and you would provide like cakes and candles and things so that the spirit of your family member would have that refreshment before they went to the next stage. As they became Christians, this turned into the idea of the soul leaving after death and possibly going through purgatory before being able to attain heaven. So there's still a journey kind of a deal, but it's not so much someone being taken from you as they're traveling somewhere, and they still have that day when they remember they're dead. Very touching.
There's another one. They're saying that when you die, you have two spirits. One that leaves to go to heaven or wherever, and there's one that stays with the body. And the one that stays with the body is that until when the thing comes where the God comes to raise you from when you pass away, that's the one that's supposed to, I guess, have talked in or however.
No, that's actually a good, interesting topic right there, because like where that originated from is it originated from Egyptian, ancient Egypt, when they came up with the mummifications, as well as African countries that believed in it in their pagan beliefs.
Well,
and
the
later,
ancient Egyptians had 7 souls, I think.
well, after the ones that were in areas like Congo and regions in that Africa around there were converted to Christian. The interesting part about this is that after they became Christian, they also started developing what we call today voodoo or hoodoo. So like with these voodoo freaking worshipers that everybody calls black magic, that's just a combination of what the ancient Egyptians and the freaking Christians believed in that was incorporated into the Christian beliefs. It's really interesting. The whole story behind that. I actually did an entire show, a few shows on that where it was a part of it. So I thought that was interesting to bring up. Are you guys still there? I've got none but blank screen. Tell them I got cut off.
And this is, I think, as it should be in a lot of ways. Roger, you're back. Thank goodness. We were worried about you. You can start talking again. I talked about voodoo for a minute, so you can keep going.
Yeah, they ended up cutting me off. They sent me a message telling me that I needed to sign in again when I wasn't ever leaving. I should have just hit the sign in thing, but yeah, basically what it was is that's what it was when they converted Africans and Africans into Christians. They incorporated it into their belief system. So people who believe in voodoo and hoodoo are actually believing in
it's an amalgamation of Christian.
Yeah, I like to call it syncretizing.
Yeah, it's syncretic. Yeah. But one thing I wanted to mention when Robert was talking about that idea of the two bodies, that reminds me of the question, and maybe Tan will want to comment on this. There are two ways of looking at what happens to you when you die, from a Christian viewpoint. And some people say that when you die, you go right to heaven or hell. But others say that you are not judged until the resurrection. So that when you die, you are unconscious until you are resurrected, and then you go to heaven or hell. But of course, this sidesteps the whole purgatory. I can imagine you have purgatory too, but these things don't happen now, but they happen at the end of the world. What's the church's take on that, Tan, offhand?
Before you go there, I wanted to go back. You said it twice now that the voodoo practitioners, they have to be Catholic church priest.
Right.
Double check on that. I don't think.
Okay, I could be wrong about that, but I know they have to be taking all the sacraments and everything. I could be wrong on that. Now that you mention it, that might be a bridge too far, even for today's church.
Yeah, I don't think that's a thing. A lot of them may be Catholics, but
you might not call them Catholic. I might not call them a Catholic.
Right. They might be like bordering heretics. If
right.
Catholic,
I think maybe a little more than border. I don't think the Inquisition would think much of them.
Yeah. Anyway, about the judgments. Yeah. So the church teaches that there are two kinds of judgment. One is called a particular judgment, which is when you die, you go, you meet Jesus, and you are judged based on what you've done in your life, and that's your personal. So right. So if you die in friendship with God, then you go to heaven. If you die with your life rejecting God, then you go to hell. You go to a place where you've always wanted throughout your life. You do not want God in your life, so you get your wish when you die. Right. So that's the particular judgment. The general judgment is the thing that comes at the end of time when Jesus comes back, and then that is when everyone goes in. Go back alive and dead. They got resurrected, and all of their deepest, darkest secrets are known to everybody at that time. And then the good ones will go. This is the end. This is it. But it doesn't mean you get rejudged again, right? Well, if you're already in heaven, by the end time, everybody will meet together, and the sheep and the goat will be there, and the sheep will be separated from the goat, and the goats go to eternal damnation, and the sheep will follow the shepherd into.
So you don't get judged, enter heaven, and then they say, "Well, we're reviewing your case."
No.
Oh my God, where's my lawyer?
You make an interesting case there. From what you're saying, you could argue that hell, for some people, is just as good as heaven. And
Satan thought so.
And
no,
but
hell,
because do you really want to meet your wicked stepmother from your?
No, but I mean, so hell is the state of eternal separation from God, meaning the people who are there are really angry, right? And they're all usually by themselves, right? They're all in their own little universe. They don't want to be like, they're the total opposite of the people that are in heaven, where eternal happiness. so the people in hell are constantly cursing God.
Well,
and that's their happiness, and that's their lot.
Well, to us, the idea of separation from God doesn't sound all that bad, because we're all sitting here and we think, well, where's God? I don't see him. You mean it's going to be just like this?
Well, no, it's all through your perception of who is God.
Well, exactly. The thing is, after we die, we're going to know.
Yeah.
And we're going to have direct knowledge. And we're also going to be in a different state than we are now. We're in a physical state right now. And again, I'm speaking for the purposes of this argument. We're going to be in a spiritual state. Yeah. And we're going to know spiritual pain. I think the pains of hell are spiritual. And they consist, as I understand it, of being deprived of the presence of God. And this is like being deprived of the sun, being deprived of the moon, of light, of life.
Yeah.
and being cut off from the one. I mean, that's why I think they say hell is dark. There's no light there. There's no illumination. And light, of course, is our metaphor for knowledge, for wisdom, for awareness. So you could even argue that there isn't even an individual awareness. You can't have a brilliant planet unless there is a bright sun reflecting things off of it. So you could say that our individuality is our individual reflection of the glory of God. I should have been a preacher. I should have.
Yeah.
But,
It's unimaginable what that place could be like, hell, right? And
they're saying there's hell, 7 levels of hell, and
9.
and
I think,
depends on what you do in life. You would have to be like Adolf Hitler and Stalin to go to the 7th level of hell.
I think it's it's 9.
9 levels.
Yeah, but you have to purify your soul, as they say, to where when that time comes, you got to, for the people that have done the unspeakable, will go to hell, but to go through, after you go through all that, then you have a chance to go back to heaven to be redone.
Ben, you're confusing hell with purgatory.
Yeah.
Well,
purgatory is the place of purgation where if you die in friendship with God, but you still have some attachment to sin, evil things. There's just some stain in you because you must be perfect to enter heaven. Right? Is that what Jesus says? You can enter heaven.
I was referring to is that they were saying that by going through hell before you go, you have to go through the hell to purify your soul.
That's not the kind of hell. That's not the kind of hell that we're talking about. Eternal damnation. Even in the in the creed of the church, they said Jesus died and he went to hell, right?
Right.
But that hell is not the same place that the eternal damned go to. This hell that we're talking about is that place of the dead. That Hades is what the Greeks call it.
So at the end times, then, when the quick and the dead are judged, right? That's going to include the inhabitants of hell. So maybe some of them will get a better judgment. Is that possible? You think, Tan?
No.
Okay, so they also get a one-way ticket.
Yeah, once you're in hell, there's no way out. You made the final choice, right? Just you made all your choice when you're living here on Earth. Once you die, that's final.
So you've had your individual judgment at death, and you've been sent either to heaven or hell. Mm-hmm. So the final judgment isn't going to concern anyone that's already in heaven or hell.
That's right. I guess the only in the end time, when the end of the world comes, they're there, but they're right now in the particular judgments of the individuals who have died. They've been judged, but there's still people living in the world, and they continue to live in the world until the end, right? So
so they'll be up.
They're there, but then in the end time, I don't know if there's a worse level of hell that they will be thrown into after the end time, but they'll be called back for the final judgment in.
Well, they're saying the final judgment is where you go to the 7th depth of hell, because each one, the severe ones, goes to the bottom, where unagonizing torture is torture.
Yeah,
and they say too that there's an angel on each side of one on each of your shoulder blades writing everything down, what you do and what good or bad.
It's different from the Dante's idea where each circle of hell represents a specific sin.
Yeah. And how
Well,
much
that's
of that same thing have you done?
well, a lot of this is like Dante and demonology and things like this, but I don't know how scriptural it is. I don't know that the Bible has that detailed a description, really. So
No.
you know, when you look at what the theologians come up with, the more people talking about the nature of hell, and yeah, you can get some ideas because it's a bad place. So you think of bad things, fire, pitchforks, all that rigmarole. But when you're looking, again, we're talking about if we're in a spiritual state, physical tortures aren't going to really mean much. They have to be looked on as metaphors for the kind of emotional or spiritual distress we'd have. So that's when I first came across that whole idea of like hell is a place where God is not. I think there's a really good book by C.S. Lewis called The Great Divorce.
Right.
And they talk about the nature of hell. And, and it goes right what you were saying, Tan, about people just separate. They separate. They talk about like all these famous people are there. Napoleon is there. And it's like, did you see him? It took hundreds and hundreds of years to get to where he was. Because you could have whatever you want there. And he's got this huge palace. And he's there all by himself, just striding back and forth saying, Josephine's fault. It was Ney's fault. It was Talleyrand's fault. It was this fault. He's just locked in this miserable circle of, and again, there's no God, there's nobody there. It's not even him. It's just like these negative feelings, and all by himself, and beautifully, brilliantly, like Versailles, all the torches and candles and feasting, and he's just there. It was their fault. It was English. It was the Blucher. It was Wellington. It was it was everybody but him. Everybody but him.
I'll tell you something that'll
shock
you. I'll tell you something that'll shock you guys. But if you actually, it's a little disturbing, but if you actually go in and do some research on Hellraiser from Clive Barker, you'll find out that man knew a lot when it comes to what you were just talking about when it comes to hell. He really did his research on that stuff is all I can tell you. I did it a long time ago, but like everything that he, like having your own little hell where you're just torturing yourself because of all of the things that freaking you hate God for, or just the desires that you have. It's all right there in your own little hell, and each person has their own little hell. You know what I mean? I just had to put that out there.
Sounds like a Twilight Zone episode.
It's the movie, the game.
Anyway, did we get past the ufology and Aryan cult?
Marianolatry. Ooh.
Well, there's one more thing that I do want to mention too, and this is actually the best part about this, is because
Bob is here. Hello, Bob. Yay! Bob has arrived. Hello.
Yay! Hello, Bob.
Hey,
If V was here, he would have the beautiful applause and sound effects for you.
But we'll do that for you. Hooray, Bob.
Hey.
Good to hear from you, Bob. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. Thank you very much. I'm just chilling here and listening to you talking about hell. And
Are you interested in UFO? Hell might be a place that aliens live.
she's not into the alien.
I'm sure it is.
She's not into the alien thing. Now, the one thing I wanted to ask you: Have you ever heard of Dan? Have you ever heard of Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre?
Yeah, he's the Society of Saint Pius X or 12th or
Saint Pius the 10th, or the SSPX is what they're called.
Yeah.
Now these are interesting people. Now these are the ones that Saint Paul II actually excommunicated Lefebvre over because he ended up what was it? He what do they call that whenever they oh man, I forgot what they called it. It's he consecrated 4 bishops without papal approval.
With
Apparently.
the people
Oh,
approval,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now these people
Starting
are
up on his own.
really really devoted to the messages of Fatima, and they believe that like the post Vatican II popes were like failing to fulfill the Our Lady of Fatima's request, basically.
Yeah.
And they felt like they were a false church and stuff
I think-
like that.
Well, was Vatican II.
Yeah.
So
You know that they Society of St. Pius X. He got excommunicated. Lefebvre got excommunicated by himself, right? But the society, as a whole, were still they were still in communion with Rome up until recently. I think they're about to ordain another bishop without the Pope's approval.
What?
At which point the whole society will be excommunicated.
Really?
You mean the Pope that we got now?
Yeah.
The one from
Only
the
one that I
US?
know of.
Well,
Huh.
I just wanted to make sure because people comes up with all sorts of things.
Yeah. Well, that's so they're basically throwing down the gauntlet at Rome.
Yes. So.
Huh. That's what they call making a gesture.
it gets more intense than that, because like they are literally calling the new Catholic Church a fake church. Like they're not.
Every heretic is the true church.
You know, there is a church called the New Catholic Church, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the Roman Catholic.
Well, there's
Church.
the old Catholics too.
Yeah. There's old Catholics too. Yeah. Anyway,
not surprised to
what
see that.
about them? How they relate to Mary?
But on mute. Now
No.
the thing
I can
about
hear
it, the thing about it is it's like back in the 1960s was when they were supposed to release the secrets for the secrets of Fatima, and they ended up having a really well, they didn't like the idea whenever Pope John, or whenever they didn't release them, which is when the Vatican didn't release the secrets, and that's when they started getting all crazy and started calling post-Vatican II popes false popes, and they were calling the church a fake church. Now, the Pope in Fatima, or the time that I'm talking about, happened on May what was it? It says here in 1988, Archbishop Lefebvre was excommunicated by St. Paul II after consecrating 4 popes without papal
Pope John Paul II.
approval. Yep, Pope John Paul II. And his followers, the Society of St. Pius X, or SSPX, were deeply devoted to the message of Fatima and believed the post-Vatican II popes were failing to fulfill Our Lady of Fatima's requests.
Ah.
Now, the conspiracy behind that is when Pope John the 23rd and Pope Paul the 6th chose not to immediately reveal the third secret of Fatima in 1960, as many had expected. It sparked decades of intense speculation. Certain fringe vacantist groups said a vacantist.
Sede vacantis, yeah. It means the seat is empty.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
They believed that the modern popes were illegitimate heretics, and they claimed that the popes were hiding a warning about the false church, or a fake pope. So
I don't know. There've been plenty of warnings of fake popes, and I mean, there were 3 popes at one time, all busily excommunicating each other. So this isn't entirely new, but it's you can get away with that stuff in the Middle Ages, but I don't really think they're going to get very far with it in this day and age.
Yeah.
I disagree. I can see that, especially within the kind sort of political sort of age we live in. You can claim that the current pope could be a fake pope.
That actually,
You can claim a lot of things, but there's proof and trails that the election was done.
I'm not
legitimately.
Well, I think their arguments are more doctrinal than really the mechanism of his election. But again, this isn't anything new in the history of the church, or actually the history of any institution, where you get people who claim, well, you've lost the vision, you've broken the rules, you're no longer legitimate, and we are, kind of deal. And as I said before, every heresy I've ever heard of claims it is the actual faith. And the Anglican Church is the true church, and Rome is what fell away, and every other and so forth with and the the Calvinists and the Lutherans, they all feel they have the way, and everybody else simply isn't reading the Bible the way they tell them to. And as far as how far it'll go, I mean, at this point, politically speaking, its importance is mostly the Catholics. Again, we're not talking about papal armies or inquisitors with the apparatus of the state behind them. This could cause spiritual and even philosophical issues, but I don't know if there'd be much political upshot at this point. And I mean, a lot of people are very unhappy with the post-Vatican II Church. I don't know. So I can understand why people get increasingly frustrated with what they see as a church that's moving away. I've talked about this before with other people, where if you don't have sin, what's the good of a church? It's like the 7 deadly sins. You never hear people going on about like gluttony or lust or this or that. It's all, I used to say churches didn't really say much about that anymore. It was usually maybe if you were like, sexually
with your neighbor,
non-traditional. Yeah. Or if some sexual offenses, but even now that's really increasingly going by the wayside with the church. So, and then the abandonment of the Tridentine Mass. I mean, come on! It just seemed like they were trying to demystify the church, and the church is based on mystery, for goodness sake.
No, see, I mean, with me, I think it is something that has been growing for a while, and one thing that really brought me up to this was back when Art Bell was alive and he was doing his shows. He had Father Martin on there. Now, if you guys have never heard anything from Father Martin, you need to go and check it out, because he was the guy that inspired the priest off of Poltergeist. Okay, this guy did exorcisms and stuff like that, and he was highly critical of the Catholic Church. And this goes, and he talked about the change in the church, how they're getting more liberal, more
right.
You know what I mean? Like, they were very, very strict, and when they talk about a lot of the bad things that are happening, like the molestation and stuff like that, he says that is all because the church has softened itself. Like, you would never have heard that stuff taking place freaking back in the 1930s or the 1920s and stuff.
Well, I will point out it might be because he just didn't hear about things like that back at that time. But no, I do think that there's been a deterioration. I've read articles by senior churchmen, cardinal priests, who say that the church has really strayed. One went so far as to say that the hierarchy of Rome was pervaded by homosexualists, and he was disgusted by it and thought there was a great crisis in the church. The church has had these crises before, because again, you've got limited human beings and power and wealth is involved, and people are sinful. They do not resist temptation successfully every time. So whether the church is able to come out of this, and there's obviously a crisis going on when the hierarchy are really angry at each other, and you've got archbishops and cardinal priests who are, I mean, I have no idea. I haven't really followed much of things lately, and I have no idea what the situation is in the church now with the current pope, or how he's getting along with people. But from the sound of that article about the SSPX guys, they seem to be ready. Like I said, it seems like they're throwing down a gauntlet here.
Yeah.
Back in the 1910s, when they would have sex with nuns at the nun place, Dave, like in Wisconsin, big old place full of bodies of dead babies in there. When they tore the building down, to find out that they were going there and they would have sex with the nuns, and to where no one would ever know about it. When the women get birth of them, the babies would pass away and be put in the wall. Well, they found out how many the bodies of dead babies were up there over the 200.
Well, see, I don't know for sure that that's fact though, because
that sounds like anti-Catholic propaganda from the Elizabethan era, to tell you the truth.
See, I've heard that for quite a few times, and in a lot of different places too. So I mean, that's more like for me.
I know there was one thing I saw where they were saying that these I think they were Catholic-run orphanages had killed all these like indigenous babies up in Canada or something, and there was a huge stink about it. And they actually went to a couple of these places and did some forensics. So they didn't find anything. There were no bodies. It was all, but it was okay because we're giving the church a black eye, and we're giving the imperialistic aggressors a black eye. It's very easy. I mean, that's not to say that terrible things don't happen and people do act in evil ways. It's unfortunate, but it's true.
Well,
but it's also.
I do believe that there is cannibalism going on in Canada.
It's just because it's Canada has nothing to do with cannibals, right? They didn't name the country because they were all cannibals. The Wendigo thing is an isolated incident. Hardly ever happens, really. It's very weird.
Come on. How you expect to fresh chase down that fresh meat?
Nuns. He's going to start talking about Catholic Canadian nun cannibals.
Canadian cannibal nuns. Oh my goodness, that sounds like
all Catholics are cannibals, guys, because we eat the body and blood of Christ.
That's right. The Romans pointed that out. I remember that. It's like, who are these people? They meet in underground bunkers and they eat flesh and drink blood. Oh my goodness. Then they kiss each other. My goodness, that's terrible. They don't even use a breath mint beforehand. It's stop.
Okay, so we have been going for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I do want to let you guys know that today you have officially become a part of the Dead Popes Society that me and Tan started a year ago.
Well, they are all? Yeah. Wow, you're all inducted to the Dead Pope Society.
just for entertaining, just for being a part of the show. And with that being said, Bob Dub, thank you for coming in and hanging out and listening. And I was really glad to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was lovely being here with you.
My name is Robert. The first time I got on.
She's already met you.
Okay, I just want to say hi.
Hey, Robert. Nice to see you.
Okay.
I'm starting to get a pattern about Robert here.
Oh, he's horrible.
Yeah.
He's horrible.
Every lady that shows up, Robert jumps on him.
Yeah. Well, I told you about my dad. I mean, it's like you think Robert's got a little bit of his dad in him too, So with that being said, so with that being said, we're going to end this. Before we do, I'd like to go around and see if you guys want to give your socials so that people can know how to find you if they want to contact you. And we'll start with Mark Edworthy.
Okay, like usual, nice and simple. Minds.com, username Nedworthy.
Okay, how about you, Tan?
Yeah, I'm not very social. I just use my mind. I use my minds.com channel to talk to myself. TH210
We listen.
minds.com. Yeah.
How about you, Bob Dub?
I snap with Tan. I use my minds.com channel and I post random things that only I care about.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
And finally, you, Otto. How can people find you?
Well, I'm on minds.com, Otto_X. That's EX, by the way. Otherwise, you can check out my website. It's navakavada.org. That's NAVAKAVADA. It's spelled just like it sounds.
All right. And you can find
I
me
just
at
love Otto's promo.
My little tagline? Yeah.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
You need
yeah.
a tagline, man.
you can find me at mines as well at Roger_Hanson. I'm also on X, Roger Hanson at ROGLOL1973. If you liked what you saw tonight, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. We do appreciate comments and feedback. And we will be
I
back.
forgot Robert.
Well, Robert is the same with me. Right now, we're trying to get him online, but he just he messes up. So
Yeah.
We'll get him on then.
We'll get
Yeah, we'll get him on. Give him
we'll
some
get
time.
we'll get him ready. But if you want to contact Robert, you can contact me, and I can relay the message on to him. So. With that being said, I am going to end the show. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will talk to you.